welcome infrastructure admins to this explainer. Today, we're tackling a massive topic, straight from the exam blueprint, the NCP-MCI 7.5 to 9.3 migration workflow and phases. Our goal here is to completely master the Nutanix Move migration workflow so that by the end of this session, you'll understand the process inside and out and be ready to tackle absolutely any scenario they throw at you.
Okay, let's dive straight into this. We're going to cover why this workflow matters, walk through the actual migration workflow, do a deep dive into data seeding, look at a huge CBT exam trap you need to watch out for, and then wrap up with some key facts to memorize.
So first up, why this workflow actually matters.
Look, as an infrastructure admin, your absolute worst nightmares during a migration are losing data and getting hit with unpredicted downtime, right? Well, Nutanix Move is literally engineered to eliminate both of those headaches. By breaking the migration down into very specific, manageable phases, you get to hold the reins. You define the exact cutover downtime window, and the underlying tech guarantees zero data loss while keeping the transition incredibly seamless. Really understanding this architecture? That's exactly what makes you a certified expert.
Moving right along to Section 2, our migration workflow walkthrough. All right, so here's the core 5-phase progression you absolutely have to commit to memory. Step 1, you just log into the UI and add your source and target environments. Step 2, you create a migration plan, which defines exactly which virtual machines are making the move. Now, Step 3 is where the real heavy lifting happens, data seeding. Think of this as the massive initial copy of all your data. Step 4 is the incremental sync. This phase relies heavily on CBT, which stands for changed block tracking. CBT basically lets Move copy only the tiny incremental changes made after that big initial data seed. And finally, Step 5, the VM enters a ready-to-cutover status and you execute the final cutover. Let's see how this actually plays out in the real world.
And this brilliantly illustrates a key decision you're going to make when creating that migration plan. Basically, you have two main paths. A data-only migration literally just migrates the VM data and spins up the VM in the target environment, totally bypassing the guest operating system operations. On the flip side, a standard migration requires you to provide credentials for the VMs, specifically because you don't want to bypass those guest operations. Knowing the why behind needing those credentials, that is a classic exam concept for sure. Now, taking a look at the Move UI here, check out the migration status column. You can see we've got several VMs actively in the seeding data phase, with those progress bars showing the initial copy chugging along, and right below that, their VMs just sitting in their ready-to-cutover state. What that means is their initial seed is completely done, they are periodically syncing data, and they're literally just waiting for you to pull the trigger. Cement this visual in your mind, guys. It is the heartbeat of the whole Move workflow.
All right, Section 3. Let's do a deep dive into data seeding. To truly grasp how Move pulls off this minimal downtime magic, you've got to understand changed block tracking, or CBT. When you're migrating from a VMware ESXi environment, Move uses VMware snapshots right alongside CBT. After that massive initial data seed finishes up, Move doesn't just copy the whole drive all over again. Instead, it essentially asks CBT, hey, what exact blocks of data have changed since we last synced? And it only copies over those specific little increments. It's incredibly efficient, but as we're about to see, it has a pretty glaring vulnerability.
Which brings us to Section 4, the CBT exam trap. Pay close attention here, because this is the single most common scenario-based trap you're going to face on the exam. Listen to this exact phrasing straight from the official documentation. During the data sync and the ready-to-cutover phase, if CBT on the VM is disabled or reset by any another software application, Nutanix Move cannot find the changed blocks. Therefore, VM migrations fail. So the absolutely crucial point here is that Nutanix Move is utterly dependent on an unbroken chain of changed block tracking. If anything touches that CBT data, the whole house of cards just collapses.
And here's exactly how the exam is going to test you on this. They'll throw you a scenario where a third-party backup software, like Veeam, runs its nightly backup while your VM is just sitting there in the ready-to-cutover state. If Veeam is configured to reset or disable CBT after its backup completes, bam, it breaks Nutanix Move's tracking and the migration instantly fails. And here is the real kicker for the exam. You cannot just recover it or click resume. No way. You must entirely discard the migration plan and restart it from the very beginning. Remember this. Overlapping backup windows that reset CBT are the ultimate enemy of Nutanix Move. Let's bring it home with Section 5, Key Facts to Memorize. Now, what's really interesting here is the strict infrastructure limit regarding data pools. Move will migrate a maximum of 8 disks from a single ESXi host in parallel. That's it. If you have more VMs queued up on that same host, they literally just have to wait in line. They'll only progress as the earlier disk data seeding actually completes. 8 disks per ESXi host. Definitely memorize that number. Next up is a really specific edge case regarding canceled migrations. Say you decide to cancel or discard a migration before the cutover happens. What happens to the source VMs? Well, it depends entirely on the preparation mode you selected earlier. If you chose automatic preparation, Nutanix Move goes in and cleans up the source VMs automatically. Super easy. But if you chose manual preparation, no cleanup is performed by Move at all, and you are entirely on the hook to clean it up yourself.
All right, let's do a rapid-fire recap of those 4 essential facts to memorize for the blueprint. 1. Maximum of 8 disks in parallel per ESXi host. 2. This one is kind of quirky but super important. If your initial data seeding is incredibly fast and finishes in under 10 minutes, Nutanix Move will actually just sit there and wait for 10 minutes before taking the incremental snapshot. 3. It is highly recommended that you perform your final cutover within 1 week of the initial data seeding just to keep that snapshot chain healthy. And 4. Automatic preparation cleans up canceled migrations, whereas manual preparation does not.
Let's wrap up this explainer by putting all this knowledge to the test. Here's a mock exam question for you. What happens if your third-party backup software runs and resets CBT while a VM is sitting in the ready-to-cutover state? Think about it for a second. Do you just click resume? Do you wait around for the next sync? Nope. The migration completely fails, and you must discard and restart the entire process. Keep studying, stay focused, and we will see you in the next explainer.